All right, excellent. So I'm going to call to order the meeting of COIC for September 4th, 2025. My name is John Nielsen, Resident City Councilor, and your host for tonight's activities. We'll start off with introductions, and I guess Kimberly, if you're up, we'll start with you. We'll go around.
Kimberly Banner, Executive Coordinator for COIC.
I'm Matt Earl, business owner in Central Oregon for staffing and recruiting, and an appointed board member representing Deschutes County.
Trina Mullenberg, City Council and Employees. Christine McConnell, Deschutes County Representative for Outdoor Recreation and Tourism.
Tim DeBoot, Cork County, representing forestry and agriculture.
Favor Solis, Mathers City Councilor.
Lovely. You? Tammy Bainey, Executive Director.
Oh, I just to
Absolutely,
introduce,
John.
okay,
Yeah.
Susan Herberg, Crook County Commissioner.
Seth Taylor, Jefferson County Commissioner.
Tony DeBone, rounding out the commissioner corner here from Deschutes County.
Chris Piper, Deschutes County, representing business and industry.
Mara Sumner, Prineville City Council.
Cheryl Halloran, City of Sisters City Council.
And then we do have Councilor Curtis. Are you online?
I am.
All right, excellent.
I am Janice and I am a counselor from Lapine.
Wonderful. All right, I will roll them as well.
Sure.
Bob Johnson, Cascades East Transit Director.
Michelle Williams, COIC Deputy Director, Fiscal Manager.
Karen Johnson, member of the public. Annette Deloach, member of the public.
Patrick Ermick, COIC Loan Officer.
You're Russ W. from actually citizen who is the county of Deschutes.
I'm John Adele, I'm a project manager from Pacific Power.
Hi, Elisa Dunlap, Additional Business Manager, also Power.
And do we have anybody else online? All right, seeing none. We do have a couple of young ladies who want to make public comment tonight, so we will call them up. Karen, if you come up first.
Maybe we use this corner. Yeah, Cheryl, do you mind if that's where we?
Not at all.
Please state your name for the record.
Hi, Annette Deloach, I'm a resident of Powell Butte. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of this very intimidating group. I'm not meaning to jump the queue, but I would like to offer some public comments on a presentation you will get later today about the Pacific Core Blueprint South Land Project. And my objective is to put Mr. Aniello's presentation in the context of a landowner perspective. First, I want to acknowledge John Aniello. We've had many interactions with him, and I have to thank him. He is responsive and courteous and professional. And I really appreciate his public outreach and these kinds of meetings where he takes his time and effort to talk with us. And it gives me hope that our communities can reach an agreement with Pacific Core so we can avoid what could be a very, very bitter fight. And there are a number of us who don't think that's necessary because we think there can be an accommodation. And I don't want to steal thunder, but Blueprint South is Pacific Core's plan to put a 500 kilovolt line from Southern Oregon to Central Oregon. And I have to say that because I want to say that it's something I know a little bit about. On our property, we have 3 500 kilovolt lines with their 17-story metal towers. So we know about this, and we know there are more plans proposed by both BPA and Pacific Core to bring more lines down our property. So I do have a perspective that I think I can offer on this. But there's one point I would like to make to this group. I am among a number of very passionate, diligent people in Powell Butte who are working on this. And we are coordinating with people in Brasada and from the Bend communities and other communities. And I want to tell you, there isn't one person I have heard who denies the need for more power to Central Oregon. We all acknowledge we have to have a way to put our renewable resources on the grid. And we know we need to strengthen the transmission backbone of this area and the state. We know that. We acknowledge all that. What I want to say to you is that it is a false choice that we would have to give up the character of our communities we would have to sacrifice our prime ag land and homes and businesses and farms and gut Central Oregon in order to get that power. That is a false choice. You will hear about the routes of Pacific Core, and we know they are open to other routes. And my group and the groups I work with and the communities I work with we're in the process of finalizing a plan on a map that we would present to you at some point if you'd like. And we hope to work with Mr. Aniello and other people at Pacific Core, because we believe the 5 routes they propose do all those things to Central Oregon, and we don't want that to happen. So my hope for you is that you will understand that the need is real, we all acknowledge that, but there are alternatives to the maps that are existing today. And we plan to present those alternatives and to work with Pacific Core to try to reach an agreement that all the communities agree to and that meet all of the state objectives of Pacific Core. We believe that pitting community against community to see who will lose the route roulette is the wrong way forward for our Central Oregon and for our state. We think there's a better way, and we hope that Pacific Core and the communities can agree on that. There's one other point I would like to make, and that is Blueprint South is not the whole story. There are plans, an integral plan of Pacific Core is to also have Blueprint North. So Blueprint South goes from Southern Oregon to Central Oregon. Blueprint North would go from Central Oregon to the Boardman-Hermiston area where there are 61 plus data centers. What that means is that it's really, really important where the endpoint of Blueprint South is, because where that substation is means where they will go north across more property, and where they may also have to go east and west and across all of our communities to bring power from that endpoint of Blueprint South into Redmond, into Bend, into Prineville. So that's one of the things we want to discuss with Pacific Core, but it means the landowners like me and my friends and my neighbors have more of this coming, as do you, to determine the proper routes for these places. And if I'm allowed one last comment, would that be okay?
Yes.
There are 5 proposed routes of Blueprint South, and hundreds of landowners along all of those routes. There will only be one final route, but there are 5 proposed routes. And Pacific Core said they will make their decision about the route in December of 2026. That's more than a year away. In that time, those route maps burden all of our properties. We have experts who've looked at this who say in some places where those lines cross your property or are near your property value is already down 40%. I personally know people who cannot sell their land, who have plans for a new phase of life, who can't sell their lands because these maps exist. All of us who live near these routes have lost the full use and benefit of our property. And here's the important point. Pacific Core has not yet filed anything with the Oregon Public Utility Commission. So we have nobody to complain to. They haven't filed any documents that say these routes are necessary or appropriate or can be built, but the maps burden our land. And we take Pacific Core at its word when they say they're looking for the least impactful route. Well, there must be metrics they have for defining that. And here's what I ask. If that's the case, then they know some routes already have more impact. Please let those landowners go. Let's find out which route will be the route that we will have a legitimate discussion about. But in the meantime, all of us are losing property rights. And so I just ask that you consider that, and I know we'll have more discussions with Pacific Core about that. And I want to say thank you all for your time. Thank you, John, and I hope all of us can come to an agreement where we do the right thing for our communities, for the people who live in them. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We can. Oh, we just have one speaker. Okay. Excellent. Yeah.
I don't know the gentleman behind this thing.
Do we have any other public? Okay. Okay. All right, I do want to acknowledge that we do have one more member that has joined us. If you'd like to identify yourself and.
And if, I'll do a quick little preamble. So as we all know, the community of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs had gone through an election that had happened early summer. And so we have a new member that is joining us, and that is Tribal Council Member Kalika. And so just wanted to welcome you and look forward to getting together with you soon. So I know this is your first meeting. Feel free to jump in. We will do our best to watch the raise hand feature, but for both you and Councilor Curtis, please feel free to interject if you have comments or things that you'd like to add.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. It's an honor to be in the Zoom on the meeting here tonight. I wish I could have made it here this evening, but we just got done with a funeral down here in Warm Springs and was appointed to this board through COIC under our tribal council and the resolution. So I look forward to working with COIC and as well the other board members and as well Central Oregon in the next 3 years. And I'm thankful for the opportunity. So, you know, look forward to working with each and every one of you. Hopefully meet each and every one of you in person and that we can all work together, you know, for the greater Central Oregon. Thank you.
Great.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Welcome. All right, so concluding public comment, we can move on to review and approval of the consent agenda, which consists of the board minutes of August 7th, 2025, the fiscal reports of July of 2025, and then department reports for CED, CET, youth, and adult also of August 2025. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Thank you.
A second? All right, any additional comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
We do have one
I do.
question.
It just said that, that I wasn't at the meeting and I was.
Oh, you were, yes.
Okay.
My apologies for the
So
oversight.
can we
Trina.
get a motion to approve the consent agenda with the correction of the?
I move for that amended motion.
All right, all right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional comments? All right, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, seeing none, thank you all very much. And we'll move on to program updates and Ms. Tammy, if you are ready to take the lead.
You bet. I'll take the reins. And so Michelle, would you like to join us?
Sure.
Great to have you. And I believe we have Raymond on as well. Can you hear us okay, Raymond?
We can, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we are sure happy to have you with us this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to Michelle and to Raymond, who will be providing us the 6/30/23 audit. And as you all know, we've been on a journey of getting our audits back in terms of the sync that we need to be in order to be in good stead with the state. And so really want to thank Michelle and Raymond and his team for being our partners in that, because we also have 24 coming soon. And then of course, we will be on track for 25. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so I mean, I really don't do much here. It really is Raymond that's gonna present the audit to you. I just want to thank him and his team for really helping us get this over the finish line, and we've already started working on 24. So we'll get these done as fast as we can. Raymond, I'll send it to you.
All right, thank you. So we've been the auditors for COIC for, this is now our 4th year that we're issuing, and we've certainly went through a lot from COVID and even the first year getting an understanding for the entity. And so this year was, I would say, about a little more delayed than we would have liked in terms of issuance, but we ended up, once things got finalized on the trial balance and everything, we were able to jump in and put a few more resources towards getting this completed in a bit more timely manner. This year, we ended up adding a few staff, and so That's one thing that I think is going forward for the 2024 audit. It's gonna help us be a bit more timely on that side. Usually, one thing that I would like to do is guide you guys' attention to a page in the MD&A. It's physical page number 5. And this page ends up providing last year's amounts and showed this year to compare and contrast. I know there's a few new board members from last time the financials were presented, and so this to me ends up giving a great way to evaluate how the entity is doing, just because if you walk in and you don't know, is $10 million good, or did we have 100 million last year, then this is a great way to assess how the entities functioned as compared to the previous year at least. So you end up having the amounts of 2022 shown on the right, and then the amounts for 2023. And this is a very simplified version of the categories for the financial statements for COIC. There's farther into the document that has a bit more detail, and these areas such as current assets and non-current assets are split out in more detail, but this is the only area where you'll have the prior year next to the current year. And so that's the main reason I draw your attention here. As you guys probably recall, around COVID, there was a lot of funding that was being dispersed, and also there was a lot of funding that was received related to the Core 3 project, as this was just getting underway back at the end of 2023. And so you guys notice that the current assets are quite a bit higher, and part of that is the upfront funding that was received on that Core 3 project. And so you'll also notice down about halfway down the page where it shows current and other liabilities, the steep increase of the other liabilities is related to deferred revenue, and that's mainly related to that Core 3 project, because those had been received for the purpose of the Core 3 project, so they were being deferred until there was more progress made on that project. And so it's not that you guys actually owe outside entities or anything when you look at those liabilities. Instead, it's just money that hasn't quite been earned yet, because you ended up receiving these grants for a specific purpose. And then as the Core 3 project is performed, then those funds will be earned and removed from these other liabilities into the revenue. And so that's one thing that I wanted to touch on, because looking at the current assets and other liabilities, current liabilities, there's a huge increase in those two categories. And so wanted to touch on that. Then if you want to jump to the next page, we end up having the changes in that position, which shows your program revenues from 2022 as compared to 2023. And so this ends up being much more consistent. As you can see, there's not the huge increases or fluctuations on this side of things. I imagine as we get into the 2024 audit, that's going to change as those Core 3 funds do get recognized, and then the assets will also be increased, as the asset of that Core 3 project currently, or at least in 2024, would be under the control of Central Oregon, although it's my understanding that that would have future discretion, essentially, if it's turned over to another entity or government to sort of, for lack of a better word, operate instead of you guys operating it from in-house. But again, that's something that we'll get into in 2024 and get that understanding once that project gets completed and management is able to issue an official standing on that. Then from there, I would say a lot of the information that you guys probably would be looking to as a board would be found more in the MD&A. That's where Michelle ends up getting an opportunity to explain what makes up a lot of these changes. I sort of just hit the highest level with the biggest changes, but in terms of the audit, we were able to issue an unmodified opinion, which ends up being a clean opinion for anyone that hasn't been involved in audits before, and that's essentially the opinion that you would hope to receive. It just means that we didn't come across anything that causes us to modify our opinion in any way. And then we end up having the financial statements themselves for a government have government-wide financial statements and fund financial statements. And the government-wide financial statements are more in line with what you would expect from a business, where it's a long-term financial statement. It's gonna report your liabilities and your assets, such as the buildings and other equipment and other fixed assets that get appreciated over its useful life. Whereas the fund financial statements that start on physical page 11 are more short-term. They don't end up including these liabilities and assets that are gonna be helpful to the entity over multiple years. And so that's one difference. If you're used to looking at financial statements for a for-profit business, is with a government, you end up having two sets of financial statements, one of them being more long-term and one of them being more short-term. There's a reconciliation that sort of helps you go from one set of financial statements to the others, and it ends up explaining what the changes are. So if you end up being interested, page 12 starts with the amount from the government funds and ends up explaining the differences to arrive at the government-wide net asset or net positions being reported. And so that allows you to sort of get an understanding of what the differences are between the two sets of financial statements. And then there's a similar reconciliation that's performed for the activities, or if you're thinking of it in sense of a for-profit business, this would be taking your P&L and allowing you to see how the P&L of the government wide relates to the P&L of the fund financials. And so it explains the different areas that end up getting adjusted up or down for that activity. Then your notes end up starting on page 15, and that's where there's a lot of detail here, so I'm not going to touch on any of that. Instead, if you end up having questions, we can certainly discuss that, but there's just too much to go over in a short meeting. And so the only other thing that would mention is we ended up providing to Michelle the internal control letter and government Board of Governance letter, essentially, and those end up being for the use of management as well as the board. The internal control letter doesn't identify any material misstatements or control deficiencies that end up being necessary to report to the board. Essentially, when we ended up going through the audit, there weren't anything that we thought were control issues. And the government's letter ends up allowing you to know a summary of essentially when the engagement letter was started and when the management rep letter was signed, and anything that could have been difficulties that arose or significant estimates or some of the other information in there is provided just for your understanding. But I would say it was pretty standard, nothing really to call attention to. So with that, would turn it over to questions if anyone has anything.
Yeah, and before we open up to questions, you'll note on page 44, there is those reference to those letters. They were emailed out when we emailed the DBE and the Title VI program. So after you received your board packet, you received the audited financial statements. They came separately.
Questions?
I'll acknowledge that, yeah, I was able to get those emails also from Kimberly and see those letters.
I did too.
Yeah.
All right, we have questions? All right, seeing no questions, there is a motion on page 44, if somebody is so inclined.
Would recommend that the COIC Board of Directors accept and approve the June 30, 2023 audited financial statements as presented.
Second. Moved and seconded, any further discussion? All right,
Who was the second on that?
all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Raymond, thank you very much for your time, for your hard work on this.
Well, and yeah, thank you very much. It's one of those, this is a big moment because getting 23 can drop us right into 24. Obviously, getting back is hard. Getting backed up like this, it's hard to get out of. But it's an exciting moment to be able to know that, clean opinion moving forward. And as you notice, my name was on there as the chair at the time. So this is important.
And on behalf of the team, I would just say that we recognize that this is not an ideal situation that we are in. And so there isn't anything about the process that we would say, yeah, well, audits, they're not that important. They really tell the public exactly how your organization is doing. It's the way of being transparent about your financials. It's an opportunity to get feedback of, are we doing everything? Is this is this a continuous improvement opportunity? And so I just, again, want to just share with you that, we are on a journey to make sure that we get across the finish line, all of them. And really appreciate Raymond's time and Michelle as well in making sure that it's one thing to have it done. It's another thing to have a clean audit too. So wanted to just celebrate that as well. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So next item on the agenda is, it's against the Michelle show. So it's the disadvantaged business enterprise policy.
This is
Oh.
the
Actually, before we do that, I do want to acknowledge that Commissioner Chang joined online.
So, and I can follow up on that. So this was for the blueprint topic, and I had mentioned that at our board meeting that other commissioners could join, whoever wanted to join us. And be between about 6 and 6:30. So we're on schedule.
Perfect.
2 minutes ahead of schedule.
There you go. Okay.
Let the record reflect.
That's when we get out of here.
That's right. All right.
Keep going.
So the DBE, for those of you that read this, it's good nighttime reading material. It is a policy that we're required to have and we're required to update. So the board has to approve the DBE policy and program. It's not to be misunderstood or confused with the DEI policy or program. Those are two totally separate things. We're required to have this program approved by the board every 3 years, and it's because we receive federal transportation administration funding through the FTA to support Cascades Transit. It's very prescribed by the FTA, so we don't have a lot of say in the technicalities that go into this, the wording and how it's laid out. We get to set our own goal every 3 years and update that goal, but other than that, it's pretty prescribed. The goal of the program is really to encourage and seek participation in COIC's contracting opportunities by state certified DBE or disadvantaged business enterprises. We don't certify DBE firms, that's not our role, the state actually does that. But we're supposed to share with businesses that there's an opportunity to become certified with the state if they are not certified. We also don't need to contract out funds if we don't need to contract out funds for services. So we don't have to make up opportunities for DBE firms to participate. We just really, when we have an opportunity, we should be sharing those opportunities and trying to get their participation. If that makes sense. So our goal for fiscal year 24-26, yes, we are slightly behind in updating this policy, so we're getting it caught up and we'll keep it caught up, is 0.72%. Or a little over $96,000. And that's for contracting periods between October 1st of 23 through September 30th, 2026. as of yet, we've not achieved our goal. We actually do not have very many certified DBE firms in our region for services that we're looking for. So we've never actually achieved our goal. That doesn't mean that we're gonna lose funding. It doesn't mean that it puts our funding in jeopardy. It's just, we have to set a goal and we have to do our best to achieve the goal. And if we don't achieve it, then we analyze why, and we try to figure out how else can we get DBE firms to participate in our opportunities. We do, go ahead.
I have one question. So what is the rationale behind the 0.17%? Not achieved our goal.
Yeah, so when we set our goal, we go through and we look at past participation. We look at how many DBE firms are in our region that potentially have services we might want to contract for over the next 3 years. We look at how much funding we think we're potentially going to contract out for services. And then there's the whole math part to that, that we do, and the FTA lays out kind of how you do the math. So that's kind of how we got to that. The percentage is so low because we've actually never achieved our goal.
Yeah.
And so if we've never achieved our goal, coming in with a 9, 10, 15, 20% goal, I mean, that doesn't make sense either.
Yeah.
Mhm. So we're trying to be, they want you to try to set a realistic goal, which is also why ours is so low. Good news, though, is we do estimate that we will have a contract that'll qualify towards meeting our goal. And we're estimating it's about 50 to 75,000. So with our transit pass program, the installer is a certified DBE firm. And so we're estimating the amount that will go to them out of that whole contract will be about 50 to 75,000. So that'll be a first for us, and that's exciting. Yeah, any questions? That's kind of the DBE program in a nutshell.
I have, how do you actually solicit? And I see there too, that it says that you as an officer will assist them in doing the application, making sure that they fill the bill, so.
Yeah. I have yet to do that. I haven't had any businesses that we've worked with that really qualify for DBEs. Again, it's our area and what we're kind of our geographical area where we're at. I am part of the state program. We meet every 6 months or so to kind of go over the program. How is it going? What other resources are needed? They met 2 weeks ago. The last conversation was more about, we should be looking out of state too and seeing if we can get other DBEs from Washington and maybe California to get certified in Oregon. It really is a state-led program though. So I'm here to help, but I also don't own the whole thing, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yep.
In the example of the identified DBE that's gonna provide potentially some type of services for the transit department, is there an RFP that goes out for those services to open it up to everybody who wants to participate?
Yeah.
And so it's only a possibility that it would ultimately be awarded to somebody who's qualified as a DBE.
Yeah, exactly. So if COIC had an opportunity, I'm gonna pick on Tammy here. Tammy and I proposed the RFP. Tammy's a DBE and I am not. If I come in as the best option, COIC is still probably gonna pick the best option versus going for the DBE. So there's still that evaluation process. But the hope is that we get the best of all the worlds, and Tammy's the best proposer, and she has a DBE status.
If not, of course, would appeal and just.
But difficult.
It'd be difficult,
Yeah.
yeah, but I think we do want to celebrate businesses being able to be competitive in the environment of contracting. And I would say I don't want to, I know Bob has 20 more years than me in terms of perspective with ODOT, but that whole piece of making sure that we're cultivating those types of opportunities is something that's also been on their sort of project list and priority list. So it is a partnership, but you know, certainly in terms of as we build the team, I would look to Bob in terms of making sure that we're casting the net in the right spot. But everything that we do is a public process, so they would have an opportunity anyway. Yeah.
And maybe it is breaking things down to smaller chunks instead of, doing a huge RFP and it's just too much for small businesses. Maybe really looking at breaking it down in chunks or, sometimes you'll get like, I don't know, construction's a great one. You have your main contractor and then you have a bunch of subs. But we don't do a lot of construction, so that does kind of kick us out of that there. But having other projects where maybe that can be some options of breaking it down.
One more question on the goals. So in the document, it states, we have to report to the MTA semi-annually. And so with that, is that in alignment with reporting to the board on how we're tracking towards our progress? Or how will the board be kept up to speed?
Yeah, we can add that. Yeah, it's not something we've done historically, but we can definitely add that in. Yeah, I can put it in. So the reports are due at the end of June, I believe, and at the end of December. So I can roll it in with my fiscal update.
Okay, that'd be great.
We can also ask Bob if he wanted to do some tracking in terms of your dashboard.
I need to add more homework for you.
Yep, I do.
It's really easy to track in zero, right now, but yeah, I mean, I think one of the things you have to do to get credit is you have to turn in their commercial useful function reports, and you have to be detailed about the dollars spent, so it's really easy just to provide updates on those with the transit update, and the reality of this next one is it's a 5-year contract, but the DB's work will be done within the first 90 days, so we'll have a final number and it'll probably meet the goal for the 3-year. The other thing is, as Michelle mentioned too, is, this is only federal dollars. With STIF, the city's go bond, a lot of our funds for construction, like bus stop improvements, mobility hubs and stuff, will not be federal dollars, and so they don't calculate it on the DB requirement.
Are we gonna see this impact 4.3? Is there a potential for this to interact with 4.3 in that kind of construction of that facility?
Proceed,
Not
because we don't have FTA funds, we don't have federal, yeah,
Not from an FTA, so they have other federal funds, like
yes.
FHWA has a more stringent requirement for DEP, and so do other federal nexus.
And we do have $1 million in right now, and that is from, that's on the FEMA side, so.
Yeah, but I think once we get into construction, depending on the funding that we use, that opens a lot of things. Just
It's already in place.
adding federal funds in there, yeah.
Yep.
Same program, different alphabet.
Yeah.
Are these funds a grant to whoever they're awarded to, or is it a loan?
The FTA funds,
Yeah.
they're a grant to COIC to operate public transit services. And so they're allocated every year, or formulaically allocated every year to support the Bend UZA public transit service.
Okay, and so in the example that we're talking about, potential contractor, the funds come into COIC and then they get dispersed to the contractor, or do they stay in COIC, or how does it?
So the funds come to COIC and then we take some of those funds and we contract out for certain services that we need. So the Transit Pass program is one of those services that we needed to contract out for. But it's not every dollar that comes in is a dollar that goes out to support contractors. Most of our dollars actually go to support our own COIC CET costs. Yeah.
All right, any other comments, questions? All right, there is an action item attached to this, so is anybody would like to make a motion?
Page 99.
There we go.
I move to approve the updated DVE policy and program as presented effective September 4th, 2025.
I think you said.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional comments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, again, carrying on, completing the trinity here of the show with the United States policy.
Again, another FTA policy. So for the FTA compliance requirements, we're required to have a board approved Title VI policy. We also need to bring this in front of the board every 3 years as well. it's due to the FTA funding for Cascades Transit. It's also very prescribed, and it is not, anything related to DEI either. The goal of this policy is to ensure that Cascades Transit and our other jurisdictions in Central Oregon are not discriminating against those that are currently using the system or choose to use the system in the future. By having a Title VI policy that allows for those that feel like they have been discriminated against, a pathway to submit a complaint and inform us as agencies of their potential concerns. This policy also requires that there be an investigation and follow-up to the complaint submitted. Since COIC is the public transit provider for the whole Central Oregon region, it made the most sense that COIC adopt a plan from this board that covers the entire region, which is why you'll notice that we reference all the counties in this plan. And then once you as a board approve it, we're gonna send this policy around to all the other boards in our region, so their boards can approve it as well, and we adopt one plan as a region. There's only one agency that chose to have their own plan, and that was Crook County. So they've already adopted their plan, but we've still included Crook County here in our plan as well. That way, next time ODOT comes around for review, if the goal is none of us are out of compliance, exactly is what the goal is. So if for some reason it doesn't get updated at Crook County, as long as we keep this one updated and correct, the county would still be covered, and so would all the other cities and counties in the region. The requirement policy stems from receiving federal transit dollars, either directly like we do with 5307, or like the other agencies in our region do through ODOT, which is City of Madras, Prineville, Redmond, Sisters, Deschutes, Jefferson, and Crook counties. So really pretty much everyone. It doesn't affect any funding levels. It doesn't affect, like, we won't lose funding. It's just the compliance requirement that we're meeting as a region. And making sure that we have the most up-to-date forms and a good policy and a good procedure for when complaints do come about. Any questions?
All right, so no questions, there is.
I guess I've got a couple on screen. Title VI just is a really popular topic right now.
I don't know if I really have to ask that.
Is there a in-house council that has reviewed the objectives?
Of this policy? No, but I did have the FTA and the FTA reviewers review it many times along with ODOT to make sure we were in compliance. So that's where this policy is really prescribed. Even if in-house counsel came with changes, we really have to be in compliance with what the FTA is requiring of us.
I guess just in observation, it appears that some of the objectives might be in conflict with one another, but the way it's written. And so there might be some further investigation to ensure the protection for COIC. So specifically objective B, and objective D, call out protected classes. In Title VI, I'm not an attorney, but doesn't provide specific protections for any protected class. It's general for all protected classes.
Okay, and are you on page 4? Okay.
So you're saying that you think it should be more specific,
More general.
more general?
Yeah, so as example, objective C, promote the full and fair participation of all affected populations in transportation decision-making. The statement, full and fair participation, and then followed up with prevent the denial, reduction, or delay in benefits related to programs and activities that benefit minority population or low-income populations. Instead of being that specific to minority populations, maybe it would say something along the lines of prevent the denial, reduction, or delay in benefits related to programs and activities that kind of benefit everyone or anyone. So by calling out minority populations, there could be a conflict with Title VI. I'm not an attorney, that's why I asked it in
Yeah.
council.
So I do know when we went through both compliance reviews, the one with ODOT and also recently the triennial review with the FTA. They at times will call out certain protected classes. And sometimes agencies want to be all inclusive and will start adding in, you know, classes that aren't called out by the FTA. That actually will get a compliance finding because they want it to be very specific. And so when we start adding in other things more than what they want their scope to be, it puts us out of compliance. So I'm pretty sure for Title VI, they're very specific on what they want to concentrate on. We also have an ADA policy as well, which is more comprehensive to other individuals. And so Title VI and ADA are kind of similar, but they're also separate in the eyes of the FTA for compliance.
Yeah. And like, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
debate Title VI interpretation here. By calling it out in here and being specific, it's not covering everybody.
Yeah.
And so I'm not disagreeing that any group shouldn't be covered here. I'm just saying the policy objective doesn't include everybody.
And I believe that is by design.
So Matt, I mean, I wanna thank you for even
Yeah.
discussing this, because Michelle just kind of answered it. The fact that it depends who's reviewing, whose manager wants to see what on the paper, and we wanna align ourselves with those. So it is a little frustrating on one hand, the intention is gonna be the same. It's like,
Yeah.
obviously, we're here to serve everybody. Some people wanna see it written out different than others.
Yeah. I'm not questioning it. I'm bringing it up for discussion.
Yep.
And it's also worth noting that the federal government is currently in conflict with the Oregon Department of Transportation, specifically on minor language items like this. And so if COIC is comfortable with it and has had its internal reviews sign off on it, I'm not in a position to challenge that. I'm simply raising the questions here that the way I read it as a community member, not including everybody, it's only specifically covering certain groups.
One of the challenges that is being experienced in many of the contract areas and language is in an adjustment in the specificity around certain populations. And so in order to receive the funding, the compliance that we follow is with the funder. And so with the FTA, which we just spent a couple days with them, there's the difference between what are we doing in terms of practice and then what are we doing in terms of compliance, and compliance is the language for the contract. I do think that we run this by our legal to see if there is some sort of, well, even if, and we can get to Mary and see if we can. Mary's our point person with the FTA. But we are in an environment where we are needing to approve documents that keep us in compliance, that do not have the broad umbrella protections for some of the populations that would have been called out previously. And the question then is, do we decide as an organization that we choose not to receive the funding? And as a public transit provider for those that rely on public transit, and possibly my mistake, I haven't asked the board if you want us to not receive the funding in order to sort of make a statement in a way of the adjustment in the language. Some organizations are doing that. Given that we don't have a tax base, it would drastically adjust what service, if any, we could provide. So it might be a broader conversation, but I really appreciate you raising it. I have had with our chair and vice chair a question around particularly DEI language and different things. And so that is a reality that we are embarking on in general. So more commentary than, but for this particular one, I think we can ask Mary because she was just part of our, oh, go ahead.
Or can I jump in?
Sure.
The objectives aren't part of the legal procedure. They're just a summary of the goals that for our policy guidelines. It's actually the procedures, that have the absolute language where it says anyone can submit complaints, and then we go through the process. So yeah, the objectives could have been written a little clearer, but they're not part of the actual Title VI policy. They're part of this overall policy, but they're not part of the procedures for us to follow. And B and C have no basis when we get a complaint to review our objectives against. We have to meet the procedures numbers. I just wanted to.
So the
Make sure
policy
it's clear.
doesn't share the broadness, but the application.
Yeah, I look at it as it's just like a summary page of what the
Yeah.
goal of Title VI is. And I think, but then, we're following a procedure that actually says any individual or individual or entity that believes they've been discriminated can submit a complaint and be evaluated based on that.
Great.
And,
Yeah, it's written in there.
well, a good example would be EEO too, I mean, we all have EEO policies, so I'm.
Some don't.
Okay, well, equal employment opportunity, yep, so I'm the EEO officer and I can get a complaint from any employee. That doesn't mean it qualifies as an EEO complaint. And I do have to report for the FTA on our EEO complaints. I take the complaint, and no different than Title VI, I take the complaint regardless of if it is an EEO or not. I still have to follow the same process, which is where our procedures come into play. But how I report it to the FTA may vary, because if it's not an EEO complaint, even though it came through that way, I'm not gonna report it to the FTA as an EEO complaint, but I'll still have to follow the same process, if that helps.
I so appreciate this question.
Yeah.
And I thank you. Going back to what Bob said, if the objectives don't match the policy, we might want to revisit the objectives at some point in time. Based on what he said, there's a conflict. We can use a different word.
Let me clarify that. So the objectives can be ours, right? We still have to follow the policy language that they approve. So the objectives for us, like, hey, we may see disproportionate complaints with low incomes. We can add that in. It just doesn't mean we can give that any more weight in procedures, but we could have some of those specifics if that's what general complaints we get. That's why I was, trying to outline the difference there that.
Yeah.
I think it's an important distinction, and so let's, in terms of what we need to approve this evening, does that change the language that they would be approving in the policy? Sounds like it would.
It sounds like it would,
Okay.
yeah.
And so if we can identify what it is that we would want that to be, does the FTA review that piece of it and determine whether we are in compliance or not? They do. Okay, so.
I'm not ready
yeah.
to make a motion to change my language.
Yep,
I heard it was already reviewed and approved by the authorities that need to
Yeah.
do it. So I'm not challenging what's in here, and I appreciate the discussion. But that's how I will close my side here.
Yep.
And I'll bring it forward and I'll ask the reviewer.
Yeah.
And then we can get some feedback on that. I mean, if you were to approve this policy tonight, check mark for us, get that over and done with. But then I can get feedback, and if we can make it broader, we can always change it and then bring it back to the board.
and we're working with them for the next 60 days in terms of follow-up from our triennial review, so it's timely too. So, and that would be great. And Michelle and I did have a conversation in terms of, do we get FTA approval first, or do we bring it to the board first? The FTA really gets to dictate what it is that it says, and so if we bring it to the board and you all spend a lot of time refining the language, and then we go back to the FTA and they say no. So we opted to go with what do we need to have, and then we go back. So that choice was one that we, whether that's right or wrong, that's kind of how we got here.
Sure.
But we do have another 60 days. They're working very closely with us, so it wouldn't seem odd to ask.
So a mechanics question. So the DBE plan is already 2 years in, expires next year for a 3-year deal. So I suspect you will be quickly turning around and start working on the 27 through 30 so that we approve it prior to the deal. So is this also on a 3-year cycle? Is this also year 2 of 3 So in reality, we're gonna be turning around and working on a new version of this for next year?
No, I don't, because we don't set goals for the Title VI, whereas the goals are really specific to federal fiscal years for DVE. So we don't wanna have a gap with DVE. With Title VI, we have brought this to the board for updates every 2-3 years.
So it's not on a time schedule like this one.
It is on a time schedule, but
In terms of compliance with language.
It
releases,
resets every
changes.
time you approve
It-
the policy.
yeah, it does, it resets, so it'll be good for 3 years. Unless there's federal language that changes that requires us to update it sooner. That makes sense.
So when's your deadline then to have this approved?
If
Cause I've
we,
heard some concerns and I actually agree 100% with that. And one comment you mentioned was having our in-house legal review, and it doesn't sound like that has occurred. That the powers that be at the federal level, the FTA review it, they've signed off, but not necessarily our own in-house legal. And just from my own experience, sometimes it is better to be more general with a lot of things, especially if we can, just from a risk liability standpoint. So even though the FDA signed off on this, because they probably like a lot of things in there, from a legal standpoint, we may not actually need everything in there to meet their compliance standards. And so pulling some of it out from a legal standpoint, saying, yeah, don't really need that, don't really need that, we can still meet their compliance standards while being more general, having a little bit more protection on that risk and liability side. So from a timing standpoint, when do you need this approved if we were to kick this to another meeting?
I think if we kick it to next meeting,
Cause we'll have 2 more. And so we're in the triennial review, so we've spent a couple days and they're looking under the hood for all of our policies and the ones that need to be updated or not, that have new language that needs to be included. So,
yeah,
Yeah, I would only add, our legal is not gonna review it to see if it meets Title VI. They're gonna give an opinion based on the objectives. They're not gonna say over FT, they're gonna recommend FTA review. I would only say on these objectives, like, there may be a work around here for the October meeting if it doesn't, like, example E is a perfect example. There's no English proficiency language in Title VI at all. We put it as an objective because we wanna expand our Spanish speaking documents and things like that. So that some of these objectives can come or go based on the board's review, but at the same time, we're not beholding to them either. So I would only just add that about the attorney review of the Title VI plan.
Can I ask a follow-up on that?
Yeah.
then? Pull them all. Is there a problem with that?
I think we need at least one objective saying the title, the primary objective of CET's Title VI program are to ensure that we're following Title VI in accordance with the, something.
That's a great, see, and that's,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the general of it, right?
yeah,
That's very general, says that our objective is to follow the policy per FTA's rules and guidelines, period. Anything beyond that, to me personally, and this is just one voice obviously, is unnecessary and opens up additional risk and liability that we just don't need to open ourselves up to. Right, so whatever we can pull out, get rid of it. That would be, again, my own opinion.
okay,
so how about this, if that is approved by Mary at the FDA, who does all of our blessing. Would the board be comfortable approving it contingent upon the acceptance of that language by the FTA? Or would you prefer that it comes back and you have
So
a,
then the proposal is to go all the way to say our objective is to align ourselves with goals and intentions of Title VI.
period?
Done.
It's an approach,
Yeah. So you're saying if we pre-approve that, maybe we'll just status it at the next.
and if she
meeting.
comes back and says no,
Yeah.
then we would say, all right, well, then in October, we will bring you back what options and clarity we do have. With that,
I would just kick it anyway, either way. I don't think it hurts anything for it to come back to us one way or the other.
okay,
I said it a lot, my own opinion,
yeah, well, that's good. You're here to offer that, thank you.
for better or worse.
So I'll put in my 2 cents, just really quick. We need FTA approval and we need to be submitting this, correct? Okay, so whatever they recommend, when they come back and say, this language, this language, this language, that's what we'll have to do, or else we don't get. I mean, so,
Bigger problem.
yeah, so. It's great that we're bringing all of this up. I mean, this is opening so many, we're having so many discussions right now, it feels like with. You know, the federal government saying one thing, our state government saying other things. Sometimes we're just getting kicked back and forth in the middle on who wants what and what do we say here and there. So they need to be, or we need clarification on a lot of this stuff, but it boils down to, we need to be able to say whatever they need us to say in here to get moving forward. So.
No, I agree with Seth.
So is there a motion for tonight or not?
I think, I think
I'm
you
going
think
now.
that the motion that you said earlier, Tony, about that we remove it and with the
Well, I was just
acceptance.
clarifying what I think was being said.
Because I think we do need to move forward because losing this would be
Yeah.
extremely hazardous to our organization.
I mean, if we need another month, we can have another month. We don't have 6 more months, though. I can guarantee that. That'll definitely, they'll be knocking on our door. So
So I'll make a motion that we delay decision on this evening, bring it back to the October meeting and give you an opportunity to have a conversation with FTA to see if more generic language that fits the bill.
I'll second.
I second.
All right, we have first and a second. All those in favor?
All right.
Next shot though.
Great conversation.
All right,
and just be aware, this will come to your boards after this board approves it. So the cities and the counties, it is a regional plan.
That's a
So
good question, actually. What happens if one of those jurisdictions decides they don't like it and says
Then-
no at that time? What happens then?
they can create their own plan. But it also, most of us in the region, actually, I think all of us in the region got a finding from ODOT for this. So we're working on it for the whole region. And the goal is to make it regional so that COIC would be on onus to update it because it is so technical to update versus a county or a city having to own their own plan, but you all have the options to do so.
But it sounds like COIC's already reached out to most of those jurisdictions and they've all indicated that they
We-
want to have COIC do it.
Yeah, it
Outside
was
of Kirk.
discussed at the ODOT reviews that it happened last fall and also the ODOT reviews that are happening here in the next month or two. So it really, because it's so transit specific, most cities and counties aren't living in that space for them to come up with their own. Yep.
Good conversation.
right. Fantastic. All right, moving on. So next up is Pacific Core Blueprint South Transmission Line Project. John and Joe. Hello. Okay. Great. Step on up and.
Kimberly, do they have a big future?
So, and I'll help with a little introduction for us as.
They're already said you have to do another meeting.
Thank you, I didn't see that, thank you.
Commissioner Chang is.
Yeah, so it looks like Commissioner Chang couldn't make it, so I'll help with a little introduction. I had asked for this agenda item. And we already heard some great feedback here. This is a big deal. Where's the line gonna go? But as elected officials, it's gonna be interesting for me to understand and for all of us to start to compare notes. Can we go across multiple jurisdictions? How does this decision get made? What authority does the applicant or the proposer have? What does the local jurisdiction have? Is it gonna be a land use decision at some point? So that's kind of where I'm coming from tonight. And thank you very much for joining us, because you've come around to most jurisdictions probably. I don't know if anybody or everybody's seen them yet, but we've seen you a couple times at Deschutes County.
And if I may, so for our board, you do not have a decision that is going
Yep.
to come before you for this particular project. This is part of the outreach and public comment process for Pacific Port and an opportunity for them to get in front of our board, which is unique in terms of the dynamics of appointed members, elected officials from all across the region. So it's a one-stop shop for them to be able to make sure that they're doing great outreach in terms of being able to get additional public feedback. So Just so if you're wondering, oh my gosh, I didn't know we were approving power lines. Well, you're not, and thank goodness, because, that's just outside of our scope and purview. So thank you so much for being here this evening.
The only thing I would have, before we get started, and I'll ask you to introduce yourselves, but this is for you to inform us and for us to ask questions, not to make speeches back. This is my only request. What? Sorry, Cody, you're already stealing in their time. Yes.
Great, well, I'll start. So I'm Elisa Dunlap. I've been at the board for about 15 years. I've held a few different roles. I am local, based here in Central Oregon. I have the pleasure of interacting with several of you on many different projects. I wear a lot of different hats. But as Tammy mentioned, we are here to give an educational presentation. And for you all to ask questions. I do have a note-taking device here if there's things that we need to follow up on. I am happy to stay around after the meeting if you have questions about other things. I'm happy to take those on. John is going to be very specific to this project, but if you have other questions about Pacific Power operations or any other questions from me, I'm happy to take them. And with that, I just really want to thank the public, including some of our Crook County residents. This has been a really robust engagement, and we are just in the beginning stages. You heard a little bit, we have not filed any route for any type of review, whether that's a federal NEPA review, that's an environmental review, whether that's an FSEC review, that's at the state level, or with the Public Utility Commission. We are here engaging with the public as best we can to find a route that has the least amount of impact. So you're going to hear John say that a lot. We know that there is not a single route that will have no impact, but we are doing our best to make evaluation to impact the community the least. The community has many different factors to it. You'll see a slide later that kind of goes through different things that we consider as impacts. But we really are trying to do our best and to provide these educational opportunities for elected officials and the public to provide their feedback. As our residents mentioned, we've been in public feedback here for a little while. And John can tell you we've amassed, hundreds of comments, and we do read those. There is a person that reads those and provides responses to that feedback. So we are taking that extremely seriously, and we welcome your feedback. So with that, I will pass it to John as our project manager, let him run through some slides. And then I am happy to, like I said, take some notes. But John's very knowledgeable, and hopefully we have a really robust, good discussion.
So, one thing, so I got hearing aids, can't hear very well. So if I answer you incorrectly or look at you like I'm nodding and I didn't answer your question, I probably didn't hear you, so I might need you to speak up a little bit. I've been in the company 31 years. I've been a project manager. I've handled a number of these kind of projects. This is probably the largest one that I've had to deal with. But it's an issue that's growing because of the population and the energy demand growing. So with that, I'll just go ahead and get into the presentation. If you have questions during, feel free to interrupt. We don't have to wait till the end, or we can wait till the end, however you want to run it. Basically, this is letting you know where our service territory is that we're working for in our Washington, Oregon, and California area. The blue highlighted is our general service territory. The dotted line is the area that we're talking about where the 500 kV line has to be situated. So that's what you're looking at is represented on that slide. Next slide. The project need, basically, most people are aware the energy demand is growing, population in Bend is growing, commercial and industrial businesses are increasing, data centers are growing. Overall, the infrastructure is being outpaced. So what we have, Pacific Core has one 500 kV line and a number of smaller transmission and distribution lines. Today, that 500 kV line, which we refer to as our backbone, is over duty. If everyone who needed power today that we supply power to asked for it all at one time, we could not supply the power. We're not allowed to operate in a situation like that. We're required to ensure that our system is always available to provide power to the people who have requested it. So that requires us to do something. In this case, the only thing that we find that we can do to alleviate the majority of the problems is to build a second 500 kV line. I want to add something at this point because a lot of people talk about BPA, PG&E, PGE, Puget Sound Energy, PSE. You have to look at utilities as operating in their own island. While BPA may have projects in the work and PG&E and PGE have projects in the work that appear similar, their projects are for their utilities and their utility customers. So that was I'm trying to answer ahead of time why it looks like if BPA is building one in the same area, why are we? It's because we have to look at our utilities as separate from each other because they are. Next slide, please. This is just a zoomed in version of where the line area is that we're looking at. The terminal points are pretty well designated. It has to come from our Snow Goose sub down in Klamath Falls. That's an existing sub. It needs to connect eventually to a new sub that's generally in the Chiloquin area because there's a load demand there. And then ultimately it has to get up to where there's that circle up top that says full circle. That is the geographic best location per our planners. However, we've already adjusted that 25 miles to the east because of the comments that we're getting from the public. So we've moved that terminal full circle substation over based on comments already. We're in the process of finally locating that with 100% clarity. That will allow us to go further with line routing. But right now, you've heard referred before, there's 5 routes, those will come up. But you have to understand that we have to go from Snow Goose, we have to go up through and serve Chiloquin, and ultimately we have to get up to the Bend Prineville area. Next slide, please. These are the general structure types that we use for a 500 kV line. They're the big ugly lattice towers. I understand that. The substation itself, a 500 kV sub, is a very large intrusive substation. It has to be. The reasons these things have to be these sizes is the voltage clearance safety requirements. The higher the voltage, the more distance you need for safety purposes. So that's why these subs and these transmission structures are so large. Next slide, please. Again, this is just another representation to explain that what a lattice tower looks like, how tall it is. You'll see on the bottom the right-of-way distance. That is the distance that we want for safety purposes for the operation of the line itself. A lot of factors go into that right-of-way distance. It's not fixed and 100% required. It can be larger, it can be shorter. Construction methods dictate it, terrain dictates it, weather in the area dictates it. But as a standard guidance, 250 foot width is what we look for on a 500 kV line. Next slide. We're trying to explain where we are in the path, and as Lisa mentioned, we're very early. Right now, we're just doing preliminary routing. Something to understand, there's a couple of ways to do this. You can come up with routes that you want to take to the agencies and not introduce them to the public, just put them before the agencies for permitting. They in the NEPA and FSEC, there's required public outreach that you have to go through. What we have found is that is very frustrating and upsetting to most of the landowners. Unfortunately, going early, as you heard earlier, it's also frustrating and upsetting because we're taking a lot more time, or apparently taking a lot more time in making decisions. It's unfortunate that it has that impact, but we feel letting people know and involving the communities for a greater period of time to really try to listen to and get to that least impactful line is the better way to go, rather than showing up and trying to force feed routes through the public. So the unfortunate aspect of that double-edged sword, whatever you want to call it, is that it sits on people's properties undecided for longer, which, you know, you've already heard, it's stressful. We understand that. We're trying to hurry, but we don't want to rush. Next slide, folks.
I got one question though. So, and this is just I'm looking at this visually and they're put in place, right? So how far away are each tower? You know, what's the distance between each tower? And how many towers are you estimating approximately being put in?
Can
Is
you go
that a
back?
tough question? I don't know.
Well, can you go back to that slide with the structures? So right, go more. Go back, yeah. So you see span between structures, typically
Oh, I see.
800 to 1,400 feet. So if you divide, you know, the full distance by that number,
The number of
you're gonna
towers.
get quite a large number of structures. But those are the distance, the spans are impacted by terrain.
Mhm.
If you are just running along even ground, they're gonna be at one distance. If you're running along large
But
canyons.
that's an average distance that you're calculating based on the terrain. Okay.
And have you contemplated whether it's buried or not? I suspect that's been a question that comes up.
So, yeah, the thing that has to be understood about burial is, while it's technically feasible, it's not, the impacts are tremendous. That's not, people don't, clearly understand the environmental and, construction wise impacts. Additionally, the company has a fiduciary responsibility to ratepayers. So one of the things we have to explain to the PUC and to, the, federal agencies and the DOE or Oregon DOE, when we present projects, is did we wisely spend ratepayers' money? The only example that I know of in the United States of a buried 500 kV line is the Chino Hills project. Southern California Edison did 3.7 miles. They requested, I believe it was $800 million for that 3.7 miles. They were granted around 300 million by the PUC down there, and it was approved by the local community. So they agreed to accept those into their rate base. So you're looking at about a 66 to $68 million per mile variance versus a 10 million per mile above ground. So you're looking at quite a bit. Beyond those costs, operationally, to continue to operate underground lines are incredibly difficult. Outages durations are longer. The amount of materials that have to be put in the ground and the construction impacts are tremendous. So while it seems undergrounding it is a possibility or a reasonable possibility for distribution lines outside your house, sure. But for 500 kV or transmission lines, it's just not really reasonable or economically feasible.
Thank you. I just suspected that it's come up. I just had suspected that someone had asked that. at some
It's
point.
always asked.
Sure.
Yeah, that's always asked. Yeah. Additionally, there's a lot of above ground structures. They call them splicing structures. So you really don't get rid of the towers as much as you think you do. You may get rid of, there may not be as many, but there are above ground structures because it has to come up and be spliced above ground periodically. So, you're not really avoiding everything you're hoping to avoid. It's the lines you're getting away from mostly.
John, I've got a question. Don't want to make a comparison, but wind turbines are 325 feet tall, as I understand. And people get all the care of the property, the road maintenance, everything else comes with that. Do these people with these towers get any kind of compensation or benefit to the service provided them with power?
The people who are directly impacted are paid for their easements on their lands, but they're the only ones who are paid for. And the calculation for the land impacted is the right of way width times the length on their land. So, it's more limited. Additionally, when we do our right-of-way calculations, our initial offers and our negotiation are about 80% of the whole land value, because we don't take the land and we don't disallow all use of the land. So while the use of the land is restricted, it's not fully restricted, if that makes sense. Sure.
So question on that, what happens if they don't grant you that easement? So could, essentially the property owners could completely block, you get down to one path, one line. They could just, you could have one or two property owners say, nope, not doing it. And that would cause you to essentially have to go back to planning and start looking at those other options for where to run the line.
No, what we try to do, the process we try to follow, we try to find the route that is completely and technically justifiable. So we're not gonna move it. But we will work with landowners and try to microsite sections of it. So if you and your neighbor say you don't want it, but your two neighbors next to you are, we don't care, we'll take it. We can move it over that far. But we wouldn't go back to the drawing board and try to find completely new routes, because spans are not singly affected. If I move towers over a certain distance, it affects all the way down the line. So the first thing we're trying to do is find a very technically defensible, least impactful route that we can. Now, in negotiations, if a landowner comes down to the fact, and it happens, they just don't want us on their property, we have to go through what's called the CPCN process with the PUC. That's the Certification of Public Convenience and Necessity. We have to prove our case that the line that's required is required for the benefit of all. If they agree, they give us the right to condemn. So we have the right to seek condemnation through that CPCN process. And that's generally how the process will go. We will do our best to microsite around people, but it's not always possible. So sometimes it will go or can go to the condemnation.
How often does that come up in your career as project manager?
In my career, I've only seen us have to condemn once, although we have two lines that are occurring. One almost went to condemnation, but the final landowner, we will strike a deal with them. We have another line down in the Medford area that we're currently in that process. It hasn't finished going through the process, but it's in the process. So that's one time we actually had to condemn, and now one time we're going through that process. That's on the Pacific Core side. I don't have any data on the Rocky Mountains. So.
But it's not a common occurrence.
It is
Very uncommon.
I will tell you that John and I worked on a project in Portland together, much smaller transmission line. It was one landowner to get an easement, and that took a better 2 years maybe to negotiate, and that was one section, very small section of line, probably not even a mile. I mean, we're talking feet.
It's
So this process takes a long time when we finally get to that section, and that goes through quite a bit of review before we even get to the negotiation with individual landowners, but it does take quite a long time, and we do our best faith effort to find a reasonable solution.
And we negotiate a great deal before we even consider condemnation. Generally, if I have landowners that are continuing to talk to me, I won't even recommend that we condemn. It's the project in Southern Oregon I only recommended that go through the condemnation effort because I had numerous landowners say, you're not coming, no matter what. I don't have a choice at that point because, again, the projects we do, we have to do.
These aren't exactly fun.
Yeah. So where we are is we're in preliminary studies and data gathering. We haven't even actually begun official permitting yet. The plan for that permitting is probably early to mid next year that we'll actually submit a request. We'll start with the federal agencies, going through the National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. When we get a few years through that, we'll file with the Oregon Department of Energy and try to do the EFSEC, which is Energy Facility Siting Council. That's the state level permit. It's unfortunate that they go in series and not parallel, but they're kind of at odds with each other. Even though data used for one is used for both, they have different agendas, motivations, decision-making space. Next slide. So when we talk about routing opportunities, what we generally will look for are existing lines that we can parallel, utility corridors that have been designated that we can try to use, roadways that we can follow because they're considered already impacted areas. Those are areas that we consider routing opportunities. Next slide. Constraints would be areas that are designated no-go completely by either state or local parks, national monument sites, things like that. There are certain archaeological sites or tribal sites that have been designated as absolutely you're not going through those. Very dense communities would not be something we would reasonably try to go through. So we would avoid dense communities as much as possible. We avoid communities as much as possible. But the thing that has to be understood, it's the community that needs the power. So ultimately the lines have to connect to those communities in one way or another. But those are the various things that we look at as constraints when we're doing routing studies.
So when you look at that second thing on the list, it says agricultural operations, yet you are going through prime EFU ground in Crook County. So in my opinion, Route D should be automatically taken off because you're not only going through EFU, you are going through productive. We have grazing land, then we have production agriculture. So I'm not thinking you're taking account your second point there.
Well, a few things you have to understand. We can get through pivots and farmland without impacting them. There's ways to construct and design the line route that we can minimally impact or not impact, especially center pivots. So simply because we're going through them doesn't mean we're taking them out of operation. The other thing that needs to be understood is we're not allowed to be pre-decisional. We have to build a case that we're going to present to a permitting agent. And part of what we have to do is develop reasons why we would or wouldn't go in a certain area. When we say that that's a constraint, what we're saying is if I have a route that doesn't have farmland and I have a route that does have farmland, I'm going to take the route without farmland to the agencies and defend my case by saying exactly what you just said.
Which again, Route D goes through prime irrigated farm ground. I
Again.
have walked Route D in Powell View. So again, therefore, that's impactful.
It might be impactful,
Well, it is.
but you have to balance all of the impacts overall. If I were to do what I take as you're suggesting, which is that, well, farmland should be off the table. There isn't a person I can walk to that would then say residential communities should be off the table. Rivers should be off the table. Next thing you know, I don't have any way of getting a line route in. So I'm not gonna try to convince
No,
you.
I'm not gonna do a.
No, I know, I don't wanna
It's just a
convince you. I'm
point.
merely trying
When
to.
you look at the productivity of that particular land, you're looking at irrigated high productivity. You come to my ranch in Paulina, I have 12 pivots, but I also have grazing land, which is less impactful because of that.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to say to you right now. Look at our production, look at the production of that EFU ground and the potential that it has. And should we be looking on an outside, and maybe a cow, it doesn't care about that. But,
Which we do. I mean,
okay, but
we
again,
take all of that.
your map goes right through,
And there's another slide that's gonna show sort of the.
and I don't wanna get us to,
No.
I'm just, you comment and put ag operations there, so I'm just going.
No, your questions are incredibly valid. When you look at those routes, you have to understand that's a half mile to a mile wide corridor. The line is only 250 feet. And the line itself is smaller than that. When you're looking at a giant wide corridor that goes through EFU, that whole corridor isn't impacted. Those are study areas. And we're doing exactly what you said. We go property by property, pivot by pivot, acreage by acreage, to try to find out whether we can justify an impact. If we can't, those things are, if we can't justify an impact that doesn't have a better option, that we would do and avoid the impact. I can't just throw it off because there's an impact. I have to present the case and explain why I went one way versus another. And the state regulates how I impact EFU. So there's a lot of questions I have to answer and justify if I try to use EFU zone. So we I am trying to convince you, we do take all that into account to the best that we can. Sometimes we can't avoid it.
How many more slides do we have? Because my thinking is we should probably get through the slides and then we can
Oh,
get
sure.
questions and then they can badger you after.
Well, however you guys want to do it.
Schedule, that's why I didn't want to get into
No,
it.
no,
So
no,
I'm trying to
no.
stay-
I mean, the questions are gonna come up eventually.
Absolutely. And they're good questions. I don't want to diminish that, but I want to, you may answer some of them going through the slides.
Okay, this is just a representation of what we look at from the environmental aspects. Land use, again, jurisdictions, visual resources, geologic, surface water, biological, cultural, archaeological, other environmental issues. All of these things are required for us to consider when we route a line. Next slide. Engineering considerations is a constructability review, line length, floodplains, transportation, crossing other utility corridors, accessibility for maintenance. Those are all things that have to be considered. Next slide. Overall, again, this is all of the evaluation factors that we have to consider when we're choosing a route, because ultimately all of these are going to get asked of us when we go before the permitting agents, and we have to be able to explain how we accounted for everything to the best that we can. And, you know, when you see all of these things, and it probably is pretty clear anyway, you understand why there is no way to route a line with no impacts at this point. Next slide, please. So these are the basic, general 5 routes that we have come up with as routes that we believe that there are paths through. Those yellow lines represent a ½ mile to a mile wide study areas. The routes themselves are 250 feet. So, you know, they're a tenth of what you're looking at, of where the line actually goes. That you have to again realize we're coming up from our Snow Goose sub. We would like to go as close to Chiloquin as possible, and we would like to go as close to Redmond as is possible. The reason that we would like to go as close as we can, by being close to our load centers, the subsequent power lines that go from this sub to serve the community are smaller, are shorter. All of that reduces overall costs and operational concerns. The shorter lines are better that you can build, so that's why that geographic areas are selected. Public comment comes in and the studies come in. The Chiloquin site has been pushed east. The full circle site up by Redmond has been pushed east. And ultimately, that's how you end up with the 5 or so routes that we're looking at. And the thing to understand is, these are not in our minds. It's one of these 5. Through the public comment, we're hoping to get ideas on how to maybe use sections of one, sections of another. Everything's on the table still. So these lines aren't to be viewed as, it's one of these 5, pick one. It's a combination of them. It may be one of them. We may go through studies and find out that there is a better idea out there, and we'll pick that instead. So that's basically a representation of where we are today. Next slide. Public outreach, these are the various ways that we're trying to get out there ahead of the permitting aspects. Emails, fact sheets, internet sites, public meetings. When communities contact us and want to be spoken to, we're happily come out and engage and talk to everybody that we can. So we're doing as much public outreach as we can. Again, it does have its double-edged effect where we're involving more people for a longer period of time, but they're impacted for a longer period of time, or at least that evil shadow is hanging over them for a longer period of time. We're aware of that. I would like to rush to make a decision to make people happy, but I can tell you if I rush to make people a decision, I'm gonna make people unhappy too, because somebody's gonna get stuck with it, and they're gonna say I rushed. So it's unfortunate, but we're not unaware of it. Next slide, please. This is a very optimistic schedule. We already don't believe we can make 2030. It'll probably be later, mid-2030s before we can get this line built. The permitting effort for these are incredibly long. As an example, I had a 40-mile, 230 kV line that I had to build mostly through the Yakima Firing Center up in Yakima, Washington. 14 years to get a permit that impacted probably 6 people and the Army. And maybe not 6, maybe 10. But it's still, these things, you can't, that's once we got into the permitting effort took 14 years. And unfortunately, that's not uncommon. Next slide. Again, the major permitting efforts we have to go through are the FSEC through Oregon Department of Energy, NEPA through, it'll likely be the BLM as the lead agent. The CPCN, if we're forced to condemn, which is through the Public Utility Commission. And then there are a few other state and local permits that FSEC doesn't govern, stormwater and things like that, that we'll have to get. You had asked earlier about local permits. Generally, FSEC is the one that gets all of the local permits. So your decision making as a local entity is pretty limited on the overall permits that we get. Next slide. This is the project website and our email for the project. If you want to submit comments, we put that out before the public, and as Lisa, we've got hundreds upon hundreds of comments. And everyone is read by a group, and we try to do our best to answer them as quickly as possible. And all of those answers are published on the website. The website's also pretty state of the art. It's interactive, so now landowners can click to different parts and go look at to see whether their home is on the line or in the study area. Next slide. That's it. Now questions.
Question, John. Is there a sound that comes off of this power that goes through the line? And does it possibly interfere with other electronic devices and?
Sound, you said?
Yes, is there something emanates?
Yeah.
The power.
500 kV lines will give a buzz, especially during high use winters and high heat of the summer. So those do give a buzz, but it doesn't affect anything. I think it's called corona, but it doesn't affect anything. There is another thing called electromagnetic forces, EMF. A lot of people are concerned. The power company's view is we do everything we can to mitigate it. I can't give the people an answer that makes them feel safe, but we do everything we can to reduce the EMF down to the voltages or down to the levels that are below any acceptable standard beyond our easements. But you know, that's basically the company's view on it, is that nothing comes off the line that is unsafe.
How about the interference to other electronic devices?
The only interference I know, the higher voltages are like AM radio. I'm not aware of any other interference system.
I have a couple of questions. First, what's the power source for this power line?
Power sources are generally our power sources in the main are coming from Utah, Wyoming. There are coal burning plants that are in Utah and Wyoming. But there will also be all of this distributed green energy that we have throughout Oregon has the ability to jump on these lines, especially in the future after this line's built. And then we also have a small number of dams that are still in operation. But the biggest supply of our power comes out of Utah and Wyoming.
And those lines come across Utah and Nevada?
I'm sorry.
Those lines come across Utah and Nevada?
We don't own unbroken lines from our generations to our generation units to our customers. We have unbroken lines by wheeling power over other utilities lines.
But you're bringing this to Klamath and then coming north, so there's nothing from the north coming here unless the blue sky north is what you're after next, but so it's from it's got, your power source has to be coming to Klamath and then you're moving it north. Cause
No, you
the
can't.
north end's not connected to anything.
Yeah, well, you can't look at power flow in one direction like that. Power flows where it's needed on the lines.
Well, I know, but the dead end is Redmond. Unless you're building north, the dead end is Redmond. It's coming from Klamath.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to explain to you, the dead end is not Redmond. It flows back and forth on those lines between Snow Goose.
Yeah.
It's an important distinction.
Yeah, no, I understand electrons go, it's AC, DC, it's not, one way
Well,
kind of
and
stuff. But
just one kind of final point on that, John was mentioning that each utility is an island, which is true in service to our customers and what we are contractually obligated to have on our lines, but the grid is connected. Generation sources are not always at the site of the transmission substation. They are all over the place. Our grid mix right now, we have 6 state service territory. We are 60% fossil fuel, but we are moving in the other direction toward clean energy. We have compliance obligations with several of our states, including the state of Oregon through HB 2021, and we are in compliance with that legislative proposal that requires us to be emissions free.
so let me clarify my question. I'm assuming that we're not only increasing transmission, but with that increased transmission, we must be somewhere increasing power generation.
No,
Because I can't believe that as the United States is requiring more and more power, and we keep hearing about data centers requiring more, and now this the IT stuff being power suckers, that we don't generate enough power today. So
Yes.
I know we want to generate, or we want to distribute power, but we sort of also have to think about
Generation. Yes.
Generation,
So
and-
what John's role here is the transmission.
Sure.
There's a whole separate group at Pacific Core that works on generation. We have a document called the Integrated Resource Plan. It's a 20-year horizon plan that gets updated basically every year that governs where the need is and what generation we have to match it. So some of that generation is through energy efficiency, so lowering the demand on the grid. Then there comes the generation sources. Battery is also increasing in that portfolio of generation resources.
So we gotta make, so I just think about, you already brought up Pal Butte. From my house, I watched this humongous dust storm the last week being generated in the eastern end of Pal Butte because we've removed all the vegetation and we're now building solar farms. And the wind's been blowing real hard the last couple of weeks, and if solar as we do it today, not saying we're gonna do it that way in 10, 20 years from now, it destroys a lot of the environment as we have come to know and appreciate it. And if solar is the direction that Pacific Power is moving as it's one of its key sources for new generation, not only are we gonna worry about power lines, we ought to start worrying about where we're gonna site these thousands of acres of solar panels that are gonna, now, you don't have to, that's just my editorial.
Comment to that. So the solar potential of Oregon versus the solar potential of Wyoming and Utah is vastly different. Central
Well,
Oregon has great solar potential, but not like it does in our other
I know,
areas.
but the BLM's already through their programmatic EIS on solar identified lots of sites in Oregon for large scale commercial. So that's not what, let me get off that because that's a circle that's not gonna go. Utah, so level of NEPA. NEPA is no longer, NEPA processes are no longer controlled by the agency. They're now gonna be controlled by the department.
the Department of what?
Well, if you say that BLM is gonna be the lead agency, then that's the Department of Interior. That each Department of Ag, Forest Service, and all the agencies that are under them are adopting a single NEPA process. Under US Department of Interior, they are also adopting, this is all in the last 4 months.
Okay.
So both of those departments have received direction that as for as many projects as they can do it, they are to use what we call a categorical exclusion process. There's three levels of NEPA. There's categorical exclusion, that's a line officer basically looking at an impact, signing it. There's no analysis, there's no public input. It's just go do it. In my world, that's like to build a fence for livestock control. Go do it. Then there's the environmental assessment, what we call the EA. That's kind of the next level of stuff that says, hey, we need to collect a little more impact stuff. You need to, in the old days, we called it scoping. You need to send out notices to the public. You need to get what the public thinks projects should be considering as they move forward. Guess what? Scoping's going away under EAs. It may also go away under EISs. So for governments, city, county, you need to get on board now with your local federal agencies and ask that you be included in all projects communication, because they may not be required under these new NEPA guidelines to notify you, to send you a note that this is going on. So if you want to maintain your level of participation, you want to maintain a representation of your citizens, of your county and of your cities, you just need to know that NEPA is not NEPA anymore. And the processes that BLM, Forest Service, for our local farmers and ranchers, and RCS, FSA, the Natural Resource Conservation Service and Farm Service Agency, all Bureau of Reclamation, all of those are changing how they do NEPA. And BLM told us last week at a meeting, they went from 100 categorical exclusion reasons to 450 because they adopted other agencies' categorical exclusions and that they're going to use. And so it's going to be much easier to move a project. I don't think your project's going to be able to escape that. I think you're probably right. You're headed to a full-blown EIS. Those are going to be controlled now by number of pages. I think a full-blown EIS is 100-ish pages.
Because I want to be.
I know I'm editorializing.
Well, we have 2.5 minutes, and I promised Tony we would do a roundtable, so I just
Okay.
want to be.
But these are just kind of things that this kind of project or other projects like it, you just need to be aware that the rules of bygone days are gone. And if you want to participate in their process, in the BLM's process, you just need to be aware that that's going to happen. I am curious, you said not all uses under the right of way will be excluded. So from an agricultural standpoint, what kinds of uses are allowed under those power lines?
I've seen all agricultural uses allowed. I mean, even like I said, watering from center pivots is allowed as long as they're operated within electrical clearances. We've seen grape operations, ranches, horses run, general farming, wheat, all of it.
It's
Orchards,
mostly permanent structures
yeah,
that are a no-go.
Dairy farms.
yeah.
We don't have dairy here, but I know that's what the problem. And I don't know if you are aware of it, I will be done. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Oregon State University worked with Bonneville Power Administration. They had a 400 head feedlot out on the grasslands right under those power lines. And for 3 years, they studied the electromagnetic effect of those power lines on livestock performance and behavior and reproduction. And if you don't have a copy of that, I suggest you grab a hold of it and make sure that it's part of your project. Because I know that's going to come up with some folks. They're going to be worried that you're going to create 5-legged cows.
So one of the comments I'll make in the 15 seconds I got here. So you had brought up agriculture, so Jefferson County, Crook County, very similar in our economic, very similar economically, very similar in population. We have high dollar farmland, so I understand Susan's concern here. But also one of the things I didn't see up there is another form of income for our counties, which, you know, we don't receive a lot of income. Is these big
subdivisions with multi-million-dollar homes. Right, this is a big tax revenue for our counties, and if you're building close enough to these areas, you're gonna impact some of that revenue that's coming in. And I would like to see that as part of a consideration, you know, I'm not a huge. Usually known for being a huge advocate of defending multi-million-dollar homes, but this is a big revenue source for counties that don't have a lot of revenue. And so take that in consideration when you're looking at impacts. Not just ag, not just residents, but also these communities like West Palvia Estates,
So
Posada.
master planned communities it was on the list.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely.
Well,
We've talked to
I saw
progressive.
residential, so most people's view of residential is like a city. You know, or a neighborhood, not necessarily, well, this community all has 10 acres, 15 acres, but. Those can be significant revenue sources, and if you put a transmission line. Right across the view of the mountains, then we might wanna buy those homes again, so. There you go.
Well, thank you guys very much. I know you had kind of obligated yourself to stick around for a few minutes after and answer some questions, so there's that there, but it sounds like you guys are moving forward to try to make the least worst decision you can. So thank you for coming and presenting to us tonight.
Yes.
Tammy, I know you've got a couple items you want to go over.
Sure, very quickly. So, as a member of this board, you are considered a public official. Ta-da! And primarily for our appointed members, there is a training that you are required to take. And I suspect you probably have not taken the Oregon Government Ethics public meetings training for 2.5 hours. You might recall it. It is a good training, but for our appointed members, you may not have. What I'm wanting to do for our board is our elected official members in your term, you are required to take the training at least once in your term. Some of you may have. It is not an obligation for us as an organization to make sure that you've done the training. But as your organization, it is our obligation to make sure that you all have done your training. And so, if anyone would like to join in on a training because you have not had one, please let me know. It is 2.5 hours. They can do them in person. We can do them as a group. You can do them on your own. There's a virtual, there's a virtual as well, many pathways. But just want to make sure that for particularly our appointed members and then for any elected officials that have not gone through the training, we have got a training for you. So that's my pitch. So have any of our appointed members been through the training already because you are an overachiever?
I think I have to the Travel Information Council.
Okay, look at that. We have an overachiever. So it would be, and so if it's been a while since you've taken it, you may want to take it again, just so that you are within, okay,
Just did it
Just-
last year, but I'll.
perfect. You should be just fine.
I would love to sign up.
Oh, my goodness, Matt, thank you so much.
Great,
So-
great pitch.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
It's
we'll
actually
have
very-
snacks and everything if we're in
And
person. If
I
not,
agree with you,
get road
Christine.
snacks.
It really is very interesting. It's 2.5 hours, but it does
Yeah.
keep you.
I'll go through it
engaged.
again.
Okay, perfect. You did when you were on council? Is that okay, very good. So, oh, good, look at us. We've got a
Look at
party.
Mom.
Okay,
Good for Mom.
so,
You missed the one in Franklin?
I did it before that online. But I was appointed, so then getting elected, I'm not sure if there's a gap that I have to fill.
it's always good to,
It's a
Yeah.
good course.
Too many ethics are not bad.
exactly,
Yeah.
right.
We need more ethics in the world.
And it sounds like Susie has them framed, so.
So what I did, so because we have a very, we have a reporter who is very into public meetings. We all did it, and then in Amazon, you can buy 5 black frames for $10. So when you walk in our office, all of our certificates are in our frame. I can take a
Yeah.
picture and bring it to you. I'm so proud. to
Please do.
So if you also would like yours framed, we can probably accommodate that. So for anyone else, Tim, do you know if you've taken it?
I think I'm out of date. I know
Okay.
I've taken that.
All right. So we will have you be the group. Anyone else, please, Cheryl?
Yeah, but do you know how this relates to the on-demand course through Oregon.gov? Cause I took that and it was only 30 minutes.
So the Oregon government Ethics Commission provides the list of trainings that are eligible to accommodate the requirement. And I'm not sure that that's on the list. The one that is on the list is the public meetings one, and it's 2.5 hours. But you're welcome to send that, or maybe even better, send it to your city manager, send it to Jordan and see if that meets the requirements. Because again, we don't, you as the individual are the one who has to make sure that you have it. It isn't your city manager
Right.
or your council.
Right.
But he might know in terms of, another training that could be out there.
Okay, that's what I found when I searched it. For the Oregon ethics training. So I'll try to find out what the differences between that and this 2.5 hour
Okay,
class, but go ahead and put me down for the 2.5
Lovely.
hours, because there's margaritas, right?
yes, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Bring in frames, I love it. It is for public officials, and so maybe, and I can send you the link too.
Okay.
So, yeah, they have their own, and then SDAO, which is the service districts, they have trainings, AOC, LOC. So if you've had any of those are going to count, but just wanted to make sure that you all are in compliance and covered. So, thank you, that's it.
Kimberly, I'm supposed to say something in this, but I've already forgotten what I was supposed to say, so everybody look at Kimberly, and look at these things that I'm holding up.
So our lovely OSU extension, who lends us this building for our board meetings, wanted to share these booklets with us. There's a whole stack of them that's right around the corner by the entrance. They're just trying to get the word out that these resources are available and they're super helpful for the public. So they just asked us if we would share that information with you guys for your own communities.
Ah, yes.
Oh.
Good. We do have question online.
Oh, excuse me, this is Janice from La
Go ahead,
Pine.
Jess.
I just would like to have the official title of the class.
Official title. It is under ORS 192-700, and I will get you I think it's just public meetings training. It's super exciting like that. But Janice, I will send it to you.
I think there were a number of us that just took it in Bend about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
There was a training in Bend
Yes.
a couple of weeks ago, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So, but how about this? We will send out the website, the training, so you can see the links, and then if that looks familiar to you, you're good. If it doesn't look familiar to you, you are welcome to join the party. Perfect.
All right, and then last, I want to give anybody an opportunity for kind of a roundtable if there's comments that they want to cover. Yeah. Why, Tony, go ahead.
So I mentioned it before, they had.
Commissioner's Corner, go ahead.
Yeah, there you go.
Flashback to welcome back.
Points for the reference, yes. No.
Scared now.
My record has been blown, I'm moving on.
So, but I mean, thank you to Tim just now for talking about the environmental assessment, NEPA, what does that all mean? You know, it's interesting, and as I advocate for these guys to come in and talk about that power line, it hasn't happened in, I don't know how long, a generation of anybody being in an elected office to have a supersized power line being talked about in your community. And this is a cross-jurisdictional group here too. Because we've already been in that spot, I mean, Paul, my heart goes out, right? It's in Crook County, but I wanna. We need to communicate, because it's gonna go across jurisdictions.
Is a perfect.
See, that's what I'm pointing at, it's gonna cross jurisdictions. Court 3 project was mentioned in the financials earlier. It's exciting, the state legislature provided $10 million, but it's really an awkward amount, because we need to get water, sewer, and roads in, we need to get a fence around it, put a gate up the front of it. We're gonna have enough money to kind of maybe put a front, sign that says, welcome to Court 3, and that's about it. So, we're gonna advocate for doing some other things out there. I'm gonna talk about public-private partnership again, which happens to be the guys that were looking at by the airport for their Oregon development project. So, just keep an eye on that. It's gonna be good for all of our public safety, police, sheriffs, and fire. are all gonna have a place to go. Statewide credentials could be got there, local training could be got there, cross jurisdiction training. So it's just gonna be a good thing for everybody. And then personal story real quick. So about 20 years ago, I grabbed a cup out of the cabinet and I just started using it as my coffee cup. It's like, I'm just gonna use this one every day, right? I didn't wanna have to figure out which one I'm gonna grab. One day I came home, my son had just dropped it and broke it. He felt so bad because he knew that was my coffee cup. I'm like, well, it wasn't that kind of sentimental. It was just the one I used every day. So I grabbed a Mid-Oregon Credit Union coffee cup and I used it for another 10 years almost.
Get a new one.
Well, and then I dropped it and I cracked it. I didn't break it, but I cracked it.
So is this a collection time or?
No, two broken cups so far, 2 broken cups.
Okay.
My point in this is for Bob. Now, I was handed a Cascade East Transit metal cup. And I grabbed it after the other one broke, and now that's the one I'm using. So that was for you. I don't need a middle.
Okay, that's good, that's good. I don't think Kyle's giving those up anymore.
We made a surface next door.
But yeah, that was for roundtable.
All right, comments, anybody else? All right,
I should mention, because I've mentioned it before, the extension to make better access to different parts of Prineville has been completed. That's the Prineville or the Plana Highway comes and crosses 26, goes uphill past the school, and there's a roundabout up there now. And then it goes and curves gently over to what would be Main and becomes Mackay as it gets further out. But now this gives easier access from different parts of town and from some of those neighborhoods that are developing there. So it's done. They had a groundbreaking, not groundbreaking, but they had ribbon cutting in July. We had Vicki Brees Iverson there because she helped get the funding for that project. So makes it a lot nicer to get to different places now.
And it also goes by a wonderful Barnes Butte open space that has paved bicycle trails that I've been on paved bicycle trails, gravel trails, and it gives access to all of that and brings the community together. Very nice.
That's right.
I'd like to make just a quick note on our employed and underemployed and unemployed groups in all the counties. And so included in the packet tonight, there's some labor stats from July, and over the course of the next 10 weeks, we're gonna see August labor stats come out. And this is true for all the counties in Central Oregon. During the summertime, we reach peak employment during the high peak of tourism and construction. And so our unemployment rates in all counties have been creeping up towards and over 5%. And as we go into September, October, and November, as our peak employment time during the summer starts to drop down, our unemployment rates are going to go up. There's just a cyclical cycle that happens every year in the fall where unemployment rates go up. This is going to be the first time since really prior to 2017 where we've seen all 3 counties go above 5%. That's my own assessment. The labor statisticians will validate it or prove me wrong in December when they start reporting on November and October. I want to share that with everybody as elected leaders and leaders at COIC, because part of what we do is economic development, and a big portion of what COIC does is serve unemployed and underemployed groups of people. And I anticipate the demands on this side of the organization are going to increase in the months coming as we see job losses in all of our counties. And so the good news is a lot of our counties are growing in population. The challenging reality is that we're not in a net job gain in most of our counties right now. And so I just call that to everybody's attention. A lot of it is outside of the control of anybody in this room. So I want to go on record saying that. I'm just bringing that I think this is going to be a crucial support group for all of the communities and members that we serve.
If I may just tag on that we have had MERV, the mobile employment resource van out to a number of communities, in particular Crook County and Prineville, in terms of the Owens Corning layoffs and others. If you know of a fair, job fair or anything like that, and we're not, it doesn't seem like we're part of it, or it's new, it's being prepared, let us know. We will come, we will bring snacks, we will partner, we will do whatever. And that's a resource to anyone that allows opportunity for job skills, connection, skilling up, all the things.
I participated in the Owens Corning Job Fair, it was at the library, and CYC did very, very well. And those gals sitting out there in that heat, they did take breaks and come into the library to cool off, which I did not blame, but you did a tremendous job, and I thank you for what you did for our community.
Thank you.
And the job fair was very well attended, and quite a few people got hired. It was it was very refreshing to me, because I really worried about that. But again, they did a tremendous job, and I should be very proud.
Thank you.
And Michelle, you guys should be all very proud of what they did.
Thank you.
All right, well, as a point of personal privilege, I'm gonna close out by saying that my father-in-law had to be evacuated in the Prineville Reservoir fire a few months back. And I had employees who had to be evacuated because of the flat fire that was here. Nobody lost their homes, including my father-in-law, so he's not living with me, so I'm very good. But I would acknowledge the firefighters and also all of the different jurisdictions and government entities that had to interact through Jefferson and Crook and Deschutes County to kind of keep people safe and keep the resources flowing and move forward. So say a prayer for a firefighter. And that, unless there's anything else.
And in only 6 minutes, you should be.
That's not bad.